Let us begin with these words of Margaret A. Kipe. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves, to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. Let us worship together. Before we begin our service, it is proper that we acknowledge that our church is built on land forcibly taken from those who have called it home for thousands of years, inhabitants of the villages of Tatonga and Atavsanga, who held the cultures and languages of the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash peoples. This land remains part of their enduring identity and heritage. We recognize that these tribes are fortunately still here, and we are committed to honoring their stories, culture, and community. Our existence here as a spiritual community can never fully be realized without appreciating the depth of the loss of their land in generations past and the enduring hopes for the renewed vitality of these cultures in years to come. So let us commit, and with that in our minds and our hearts, let us begin our worship. Please rise in body and spirit as you are willing and able for the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And please remain risen for our congregational covenant and opening hymn.
These chalice lighting words today are by David Breeden. Our light is the light of the sun, keeper of all we love. Our light is the light of the earth, provider of sustenance. Our light is the light of all living things, life precious like our own. Our light is the light of each of us, bound together in need and hope. Our light is the light of the cosmos, keeper of all we know. And now our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento, y el servicio es su misión. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto. Now our gathering hymn. 360 in the gray hymnal.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infant and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regrets, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's
seated. Good morning and welcome. We are happy to have you here in person and online. Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church is named after the Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we are an inclusive, diverse religious community that has been a part of the West Valley for over 65 years. I'm Melissa Marote. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm honored to serve as your worship associate this morning. Reverend Matthew McHale is not here today, and Todd Covert will be leading the service. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity for us to be together in community, which is a time of peace, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian congregation is a place where we come to learn about being human, where we're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and opening to connection in all its forms. Today's reflection is part of the Sacred Cinema series, in which we gathered to watch Leave No Trace this past Friday. And today we'll contemplate its many messages. I watched this movie with my 13-year-old daughter, Amelia, at home. It was interesting to hear her reactions throughout the movie. She wasn't used to a movie that wasn't packed with action. But Amelia related strongly to the daughter character, especially when the girl began making connections with other people and animals and started longing to settle down to a more comfortable and conventional lifestyle. As a family, we've gone camping together for 3 or 4 nights at a time. So Amelia has foraged for firewood, heated food on our 2-burner propane stove, and slept in a sleeping bag under the stars, actually outside of the tent, which I was too scared to do. But she was also raised in a house and knows the comfort and security that provides. It isn't clear in the movie how long the girl had been living in the woods with her father. When the father and daughter are first caught by the police and they are being evaluated by social services, Amelia and I could empathize with the fact that their way of living wasn't hurting anyone and that the daughter seemed to be more advanced scholastically than her peers. It seemed unfortunate that they were taken from the land and home they'd created in the wilderness. But as the movie progressed and the father and daughter left the stable home that had been provided to them, my daughter grew increasingly agitated with the father, unable to empathize with him. Amelia couldn't understand why he couldn't allow his daughter to take root and create a supportive network that included more than just her dad. As a therapist who has worked with clients with post-traumatic stress disorder, I can understand the father's need for isolation and control over his environment. But ultimately, he is unable to give his daughter what she longs for. It was really heartbreaking, and it made me cry. My daughter was left feeling irritated. But I loved this movie because it allowed me to empathize with most of the characters in turn. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this, Todd. Please take a moment to sign our guest book so that you can get on our email list to get more information about upcoming events and to strengthen our connections here. Also take a moment to write any joys and sorrows in the link in the chat or in the Book of Life, which is located near the piano, if you would like them shared later in the service. And now, let's just take a few moments to greet our neighbors this morning. All right.
Now, let's see if I can get the. Trying to keep the virtual Book of Life. Oh, there we go. There's one today. Nicole.
What is the last phrases that you say before the offering?
Oh, that's a good question.
So I know when to get
let's see. That's reflection 1. A couple of questions. So if you hear the phrase knife's edge,
Okay.
that'll be right before the very
You're
end.
here. Did you hear what I just said about you?
Timing is Good morning. For those of you I don't know, I'm Todd Covert. I use he and him as my pronouns, and it is my privilege to serve as worship leader this morning while our settled minister, Reverend Matthew McHale, is out of town. This service is part of our ongoing Sacred Cinema series, and it also continues our exploration this month of the worship theme, which is trust. At this time, we generally offer a story intended for the youth in attendance. Today, in keeping with the subject matter of the film that we watched on Friday and that I'll be exploring today, Leave No Trace, I wanted to share a video from a British podcast series called The Off-Grid Family. So I invite all of you of whatever age, here and online, to watch and give some thought to the things that the mom in the video talks about and shows to us.
The end of February is going to bring a lot of milestones for our off-grid family. Albie is going to turn 1, which will mean we've done a whole year as a family of 4. It will also mark the end of my second and final maternity leave, and I will soon be returning to work as a teacher 4 days a week. These transitions are difficult for any family, and for us it's going to be no different. Early starts won't be a problem because Albie still wakes up at 4 in the morning, but I think it's going to be making sure that we all get out of the house on time and get everything done that we need in order to function in the real world, as well as everything we need to get done in order to function here as part of our off-grid life. As we come to the end of this stage of our family life, it feels like a really good time to talk about why we chose to have children off-grid and to reflect on how the first year of having our 2 children as part of our off-grid life has gone. I was 33 when we had Grace and Fraser was 37, so we had plenty of time to think about what sorts of parents we wanted to be. The things that I felt were important for them have shifted a lot, and I think that's tied in with the way we live our life as well. Before it was always a case of I want them to do well at school and I want them to get a secure job. But as I have progressed into my 30s, that's really changed to a more of a focus on developing characteristics which I think are important. I think that the way the world is changing, things like AI and technology, I don't know what jobs that we'll be preparing them for. I don't even know if they will have jobs. So I think the best that we can do is instill in them values and characteristics which will stand them in the best of stead whatever life throws at them. So the first of those is curiosity. For our children, I really want them to be curious about the world around them and I really want them to ask questions, question things that they're told, and develop a critical mind rather than just being a sponge and absorbing everything that they're told. I really want them to challenge things and look at all of the evidence and form their own opinions. I'd really like for them to have an inner confidence, and it's a balance between raising children who are shy and children who are a bit full of themselves. So that one's a tricky one, and we're going to be working that out as we go along. I think one of the big reasons why off-grid life seemed to suit our style of parenting was because for us, one of the most important qualities is resilience, and that is definitely something you build here. When the children fall, I don't rush over to them straight away to pick them up. I wait for them to tell me whether or not they're hurt, and 9 times out of 10 they will just get up and carry on. That 1 time out of 10 when they are hurt, they get a big cuddle, they get looked after, they get all the care and the love that they need. But they decide whether they're hurt, not me. They need to know that sometimes when you fall down you can get up, and sometimes when you fall down you need a little bit of help. I really want our children to be kind. I suppose everybody wants their children to be kind. Kind to each other, kind to the rest of their family and their loved ones and friends, and kind to nature and the environment as well. And finally, I would love for them to be able to find contentment. In a world that is continuously telling you you don't have enough or that you're not enough, I think it would be really great for the children to be able to embrace what they have while still striving to achieve their dreams, but to still be able to take a step back and go, I'm so lucky for what I have, I'm so lucky for the things in my life and the people in my life, rather than always be looking for that next step. We have found that there are lots of benefits to raising our children off-grid. Both babies love being outside in all weathers, they nap outside in all weathers. I can tell that for them it's already becoming a crucial part of their routine. Being the oldest, Grace has already developed a great understanding of risks. She is really good at keeping herself safe and making sensible judgments about what's okay to do and what isn't. Our children absolutely love all food, and I believe there are 2 main reasons for that. One is that we eat every meal together. Obviously sometimes one of us is at work or one of us is out, but generally if we are all in the house we all eat together. But I think the main thing is the fact that the children go into the polytunnel and they just help themselves to things. Grace was fantastic at this last summer. She was eating tomatoes, peppers, she was picking aubergines, she was eating raspberries, strawberries, and she just loved it. There are challenges to raising children off-grid. One of the things that at this time of year is challenging is the fact that because we spend a lot of time outside, we spend an awful lot of time getting dressed to go outside. We have to layer up. Having said that, it's always completely worth it, and once they're outside, they love it. Well done, everyone. Whilst I said that understanding risk is definitely a benefit, the other side of that coin is the fact that safety is a challenge. We've got a lot of stuff here that can pose a risk to children if they're left unsupervised or if they're not looked after properly.
Beehives.
Yeah, beehives.
But I still think it's worth it, and I actually think that that enriches them. I'd rather do that than them not have those experiences and not have the chance to go outside and do all of those things. So for me, it's worth it. For something so incredibly boring, I seem to talk about washing a lot, so we'll keep it brief. Basically, children get through a lot of clothes, you put them out in the mud, they get through even more clothes, and you have limited amounts of water and limited amounts of power, especially through the winter. So that has its challenges, but let's not dwell on that because that's really dull. Oh, this is the one that I was dreading talking about because this is the one that I think is the worst, and that is mum guilt. Anyone who has children can relate to the fact that if you feel like you're not providing your children with something they should have, then you feel guilty. And for me, obviously we're living in a mobile home, it's very tiny, the children don't have a lot of space, and that has resulted in some mum guilt in the past. When I was pregnant with Albie, I had a real guilt about the fact that Grace and he would never have had a beautiful nursery. You go on Pinterest when you're pregnant and you see all of these things that crop up about these beautiful nurseries, and your friends have babies and they all have beautiful nurseries, and you realise that's not something that I'm going to be giving to my child. And that sounds really ridiculous now when I look back at it, but at the time it was a real thing. And I would look into their tiny little room and I would think, gosh, you're not going to have that. But I would just remind myself that that's not the choice that we've made for them, because we have chosen something different. We've chosen to give them different things. Not better, not worse, just different. And I have to remember that they walk out the door and they're in Narnia. So tips for people who want to live off-grid with their children. Number 1 is let that go. Perfection is not possible. Sometimes there will be bits of bark on the floor from where the children have helped put the logs into the log pile. One of them might get picked up and chewed a little bit. Sometimes there will be mud on the floor. It will happen. And sometimes you will be going out and you will have your children all immaculate, but from your home to your car, they'll get covered and you just have to go, do you know what? Never mind. Let's just get in the car and go. And at the end of the day, if you finish the day and the children have been happy and safe, then that's all that really matters. Make the most of your outdoor space and the opportunities that brings. That is the best part of being off-grid with children, and so you have to make the most of it. Even on those days when the weather's rubbish, you've got to force yourself out the door, you've got to get the kids dressed, you've got to get them out there and make the most of it, because you'll have made compromises to live an off-grid life, and those compromises will probably have a lot to do with the house that you're in or the space that you have where you in your living area. So get the children outside and get them growing and eating food, get them rolling around in the mud, just let them enjoy a really traditional old-fashioned childhood of having a fantastic connection to nature. And by doing that, you will counteract all of the other things. I honestly do believe that they will not remember that there was mud on the floor or bark on the floor by the wood burner, or that it was a bit dusty where the wood burner was. They won't remember any of that. They won't remember that their bedroom was small. What they will remember is the amazing memories that you make with them outside, and they will carry with them those values and those characteristics which you've worked so hard to instill in them. And then my third tip is get the children to help you, and then they'll be taking responsibility for your off-grid setup too. They will know the value of having water and having power and having food that you've grown, because they'll have put the work in as well. I think that will really help to make them love the life that they lead. Albie's up. Who's got muck on his face? Let it go, let it go. If you'd like to know more about our journey to becoming an off-grid family, then watch this video here.
So the movie we're going to be talking about today raises questions about parents and kids. And to get us off to a good start, here are some questions that I thought about watching this video. For the parents here and online, I invite you to think about the lists that the mom spelled out. How important do you think the attributes she lists are for kids? And do you think she missed any benefits or dangers of the lifestyle that she and her family are living? And for any kids who might be joining us, what did you think about how the kids in the video got to spend their time? Do you spend as much time outdoors as they do? As much time in the mud? What about the mom not going to pick up the kid who fell? If your mom or your dad asked you to decide if you were hurt if you fell down, could you do that? How would that make you feel? I invite you to carry these and any other questions that might have occurred to you out from this service. We're going to be wrestling with some other questions over the course of the remainder of the service. But for right now, for those of you who know the hand signals, please join with them. We're going to do our unison affirmation for youth. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. And now shifting gears radically, this is the early stage of our annual pledge campaign. Things are off and running, and we're going to take a moment here. I'm going to invite our board president, Clinton Bench, to come up and speak to you all for a bit.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know we finished that logo. That is such a nice logo. Wow. I need to put that logo on the pledge form next. Maybe I'll even have that done by the end of the day today. You never know. Anyway, whoever did that, was that Katie? I don't know. That was very nicely done. Anyway, that's not why I'm up here to talk about the logo. I was up here to just give a short little set of thoughts and talk about my inspiration for giving of time, talent, and in particular treasure to Emerson. I grew up in a family of, I like to think of it as love, lots of love, but also lots of chaos, guilt, substance misuse, craziness, and most importantly, though, a fundamental knowing that the way forward was to act with grace and compassion for people that we encountered. Now, I said a chaotic family, so being able to feel like my family was always really consistently committed to this cause was not in the cards. Indeed, the way my family found Unitarian Universalism was through chaos activism and work towards nuclear disarmament in the 1980s through an organization called the Women's Action for Nuclear Disarmament that was led by Dr. Spock and Helen Caldicott. Some folks maybe a little farther on in years like me will remember that, but for those that are younger, go take a look. Some pretty amazing people. Anyway, we had a chapter in Muncie, Indiana, if you can imagine. And it happened that the two folks that were heading up that chapter were my mother and the wife of our Unitarian Universalist minister there in Muncie. And so we became very involved in that organization. And I think it was my dad then that became closer then to the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church, realizing that Unitarian Universalism might offer a place of retreat for him, of kindness, of setting aside the chaos of our family and wider world and just being present, a place where no one expected him to keep up appearances of his profession as a doctor, masculinity as a man, or whatever else people expected of him. And I think the principles of UUism stayed with me, obviously. I won't bore you with all of the details of our family's involvement in the church in Muncie, but to really focus on me and my own exploration. I found an amazing chosen family when I went to college in Massachusetts, one that allowed me to start to explore identities of others and of myself. And as I graduated, I realized I was missing something, missing a broader chosen family to keep me connected and to build a deeper understanding of how I relate to the broader world. So I thought back, oh yeah, Unitarian Universalism. That's my family's religion. But I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been to church in a few years. What were those principles? I remember there were like 7 principles. If I go to the church in Cambridge, are they going to ask me them? Am I going to have to recite them? So I literally went to the Cambridge Public Library. I was like, oh, let me find a book that talks about this so I can at least sound somewhat intelligent. Of course, went to church the next morning, because I went there on a Saturday, went to church the next morning, and nothing was farther from the truth. Was welcomed with open arms, indeed, right into this group called the Young Adults Group. Invited me off on a little weekend journey a couple weeks later, and it was amazing. That experience was one of family, no judgment, love, games, learning. Kissed a boy for the first time as part of the Young Adults Group. It wasn't an official, activity, but, it happened. Put together the pieces of the stated principles of Unitarian Universalism, and particularly of compassion and nonviolence and walking with a light footprint in the world that my family was always trying to figure out how to do. It's allowed me, too, to connect all of these principles to the bigger world. I was also very involved in politics, and it very much informed my way of acting with intentionality in my political work. And of course, I was always one of these people that was willing to be a leader. Eventually, in a couple of years, I somehow found my way to being president of the congregation, which was great because it offered me the opportunity, too, to go to a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in Rochester, New York, back in, I think, 1997 or 1998, where I met my now husband, who we've been together, well, you can count the years then. Since then, he was there from the Las Vegas church, I was there from the Cambridge church, and the rest was history. Then, fast forward to 2015, I come to Los Angeles, needing a change in our lives, changing jobs, etc. And again, why don't I go check out that UU church? And what do you know? Everybody was here to greet me with open arms, with love, and an opportunity to build connection to this new place that I live. Indeed, Unitarian Universalism and Emerson now brings me back to the center. It's a reference point for all the decisions I make. So when we think about Forward Together this year, we think about our gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Do you need to tithe? Do you need to give 10% of your income to Emerson? No. But, what I like to think about is, what are all the other things that I spend time and money on? Therapy. Many, many thousands of dollars on therapy over the years. Books, vacations, charity, connecting to the world. How much do we spend? And then I think, of how much Unitarian Universalism, Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church, First Parish in Cambridge has given to me and helped me center and build my own identity. And that's how I make my pledge. I think about what it's given to me, and I made my pledge accordingly earlier this week. I hope during our time of giving today, maybe you'll pull out your own phone and go to pledge.emersonuuc.org and do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clinton, for sharing that. And now the Emerson Choir, under the direction of Eloise Porter, is going to offer an anthem.
It's not a drill.
Yeah, it's right up here.
He's got him.
Stand up.
You alone out here? My daughter's with me.
Dad?
Let's go.
Can you tell me where you live? In the park?
There's 435 questions. Respond true or false to each question.
Who taught you how to read?
My dad teaches me.
You're actually quite a bit ahead of where you need to be.
I wake up rested and peaceful most mornings.
True.
My day-to-day life is full of things that keep me interested.
True.
I have nightmares or troubling dreams.
Was your dad in the service?
He was.
Do you feel safe living with your dad?
We didn't need to be rescued.
Your dad needs to provide you shelter and a place to live.
He did.
It's not a crime to be unhoused, but it's illegal to live on public land.
We have found an option.
Are we gonna be okay here?
You can still think our own thoughts.
Keep pedaling. Look where you want to go.
School is about social skills, not just intellectual ones.
I think it might be easier on us if we try to adapt.
We're wearing their clothes, we're in their house, we're eating their food, we're doing their work. We have adapted.
First of a thousand, right on the wall.
Pack your things.
Did you even try? 'Cause I can't tell.
Somebody said it's unspeakable love to me.
Where's your home?
With my dad.
Lift that burden off of me.
I don't want to leave. Same thing that's wrong with you isn't wrong with me.
Lift that burden off of me.
Where are you guys headed?
I don't think we knew where we were going.
It remains to me. It's an audio-visual meltdown. I thought the trailer would provide some context for my remarks and for those of you who didn't have an opportunity to see the film. I posed some questions a few minutes ago after we watched that video on off-grid parenting. In reflecting on this film that we're considering, I found myself similarly as much asking questions as reaching firm conclusions about the themes and subjects that the film addresses. I'm inclined to think that that is one mark of a great film, that it resists simple, reductive analysis, but rather challenges our assumptions and leads us to engage fully with it. Leave No Trace, directed by Debra Granik, follows a father and daughter, Will and Tom, played by Ben Foster and Thomasin McKenzie, who are living intentionally unhoused and off-grid in a forest park outside Portland, Oregon. In the course of the events depicted in the film, we see the pair taken into custody by social services, followed by their attempts to return to the wilderness. Along the way, we come to understand that Will, a combat veteran, suffers from PTSD. When we're first introduced to Will and Tom, we see him exercising great care in seeing that she acquires both a formal education and a value set that prizes esteem for the earth over connection with other people. The two have tenuous relationships, mostly transactional in nature, with others in the area of their camp and in the city where they occasionally shop. As a wounded warrior, we can understand that Will chafe at regimentation, discipline, and hierarchy. And it appears that he has constructed a value system based on this perspective, one which he is instilling in his daughter. When Will and Tom are taken into custody, the writer-director
stages the sequence in a manner that casts the authorities initially as uncaring, intimidating, and even destructive. I know from my own childhood, raised in Unitarianism and with anti-establishment attitudes shaped by family members engaged in radical action against the Vietnam War and the draft, that personally I'm primed to assume the worst of the state. I find it difficult to trust authority. Or perhaps it's more apt to say that distrust of institutions is my default setting, even before they have done anything specific to violate my trust. Will, with his wounded psyche, naturally shares this suspicious and even hostile attitude. However, the film quickly introduces a social worker named Jean who acts with patience and apparent compassion toward Tom, who is taken into her custody. Jean works to find a setting where Will and Tom can remain independent, but also safe, and in a position for Tom to begin school. As Jean notes, and you heard in the trailer, the function of schooling is not just intellectual, but also social development. A brief sequence with other girls in care of the county refreshes our perhaps innate suspicion that institutions are content to do no more than just simply house these children. But we get to see played out the competing impulses of a government acting in loco parentis and the very challenging upbringing that Will provides to Tom as a way of ensuring that they both, in his phrase, get to think their own thoughts. So the questions. Is that the highest goal? To retain the independence of your thoughts? Among our Unitarian Universalist principles, the ones that Clinton talked about, we enshrine a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. How do we balance those imperatives? To be free, but yet not irresponsible. One of the central issues of the film plays out on exactly that knife's edge. Is Will's insistence that he and Tom be wholly free of constraints responsible? To her? To himself?
We say in our church that the offering is a sacrament of the free church. What we mean by that is that we believe it is a blessing to be able to govern and support our religious community ourselves, to make possibly by our own generosity everything we dream of and do to live in our shared values. Every week we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this church. Our plate then, as it is passed among us, becomes filled with the evidence of that generosity. It is our harvest, gathering in every week for what most nourishes us. Today we are sharing the plate, splitting the donations with CLUE, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. CLUE works to educate, organize, and mobilize the faith community to accompany workers and their families in their struggle for good jobs, dignity, and justice. CLUE and its network of leaders and congregations partner with activists, community organizations, and unions to increase workers' capacity to influence their working conditions, to attain worker-friendly public policies, and to pressure commercial industrial developers to agree to a community benefits package in exchange for permits and subsidies. If you want to put in the memo line that it is going to be going towards Share the Plate, go ahead and put that. But if you want to put your donation today towards your pledge, you can also put that down as well. The ushers will now come around and receive the gifts of the congregation, and the morning offering will be most gratefully received. Thank you.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
So I've looked at trust in institutions in Leave No Trace. What about the community? In the film, after Will is badly injured venturing alone into the Washington woods to procure provisions, he and Tom find themselves in an isolated, intentional community in the forest. While the residents are cautious with outsiders, they provide medical treatment to Will and welcome both Will and Tom to stay while he convalesces. Will resists accepting help. He resists staying as a guest long enough to properly rehabilitate his leg. At the same time, Tom becomes attached to the community and sees it as a possible place where she and her father can live and where he will be less likely to be triggered by rigid systems of authority. At a key moment in the film, Tom meets a woman in the community who keeps bees. She introduces Tom to the residents of the hive and points out that the bees, who are capable of causing great harm, albeit unlikely to do so, trust their human tenders. It's clear in that moment that trust extended by the many can easily be overlooked and, as a result, not reciprocated. The willingness of the swarm of bees to get acquainted with Tom is not unlike the willingness of the community to make a place for Will and Tom, with the proviso that they will not bring trouble with them. Tom experiences this covenant with the bees. If she tends them gently, they will collectively allow her access to the hive. Tom's perception of the community as essentially nurturing diverges from Will's mistrust and unyielding need for isolation from society. While he apologizes for having put Tom at risk, venturing into unknown territory in freezing conditions, ultimately he cannot bring himself to be bound by even the most reasonable expectations of conduct. Will cannot accept healing at the expense of independence. As Unitarian Universalists, we speak often of beloved community. The Eighth Principle website defines this, first of all, as an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care. Now, we may think broadly of our congregation as fulfilling that role. However, speaking principally for myself, it seems to me that it is when we join in worship, most especially here in our sanctuary, that we truly manifest that sense of beloved community. When we experience a call to worship and the lighting of our chalice, we are challenged to set aside our egos and our differences and bring our most open and loving spirit to the fore. Each week, we hear both joys and sorrows shared and are asked to offer our collective strength, love, and trust in response. This is no small thing. It asks for selflessness, for compassion, for empathy. We may not realize, though, how we are fortified in those resources by the joys we hear, fortified to lift up those experiencing sorrow. The anthropologist and scholar of ritual, Victor Turner, identifies communitas as a hallmark of religious ceremonies. Turner defines this, communitas, as a feeling of heightened solidarity produced during ritual. Participants set aside the roles that define them in mundane life and seek to join as one community. To do this, it seems to me, requires a depth of trust that is easily taken for granted. Our neighbors in the pews sit or stand with us as equals and open their hearts, inviting us to do the same. In this, we make ourselves vulnerable. with the reward being connection as spirit to spirit, with the possibility of growth and healing as a potential reward. It is this leap of faith and trust that Will, and leave no trace, his psyche broken by his experience of war, is sadly unable to do. And so his daughter must make a profoundly difficult choice to open herself and her heart up to a wider world at the risk of leaving her father, who simply cannot do so. Is the choice she makes right for her? Is it right for her father? Should that matter? I now invite you to join me in a spirit of meditation or prayer or simply contemplation. Find a comfortable position. Settle in. Perhaps close your eyes and find your breath. And here in this place, this beloved community, as you breathe, imagine that you breathe in all that is shared by all those around you here and through our connection to our fellow community members online. Breathe in what is shared and breathe out all the gifts that you would bring to them. Feel that connection, breathing in their strength and breathing it out to them as well. And as we abide as one community in this moment, I share these words of Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So may it be. Each week, as we join together in this state of connection and compassion, we share joys and concerns from members of the congregation. This week, in our Book of Life, someone who has not written their names shares divine, connected, expressive, loved, strong, joyful, rooted. And Eric Schmidt writes, sad to hear about the children of Ukraine being kidnapped and taken away to Russia. In our virtual Book of Life, Nicole has written, I have never loved the sunshine in Southern California like I'm loving it these past 2 days. Indeed. And I will take a personal moment and share a joy, and I will say, as much as I am often conflicted and express conflicted feelings about our dual platform services, perhaps keeping us apart as much as uniting us, today I'm pleased to say that my girlfriend Deb is joining us for the first time via Zoom from her home in Philadelphia. Okay. Some joys and sorrows alike are too tender, too new to be shared. And so I invite you all, those of you here in the sanctuary, when I sound the singing bowl, to speak aloud those names or occasions you would like lifted up as we remain in this state of connection and mutual support. For those of you online, please feel free to type those into the chat. For all that has been spoken or written, there remains that which is still too tender yet to express at all. But we know that those joys and those sorrows live in our hearts. And as we remain connected, one beloved community, I invite you now, take all that has been shared and all that remains unspoken, and as I sound this bowl once more, lift it up. Celebrate the joys, lift up and support those in sorrow.
We'll be doing a responsive reading. Called Earth Teach Me, from the Ute Indians of North America. Earth, reach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me caring as parents who secure their youngs. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life.
So we've considered in our sacred cinema offering trust in institutions and trust in community. But at the core of the movie is the question of trust between parent and child. The poet William Wordsworth penned a phrase which has become very nearly a cliche: the child is father of the man. During the events depicted in Leave No Trace, when the father, Will, is seriously injured, it falls to his daughter, Tom, to rescue him and to watch over him during his immediate recovery. This is an illustration of a very literal reading of Wordsworth's phrase. It captures the cliched understanding. However, Wordsworth, in his poem entitled My Heart Leaps Up, was really attempting to exhort his readers to open up their aging and rigid spirits to the child within, to recapture an unspoiled nature, to reset the soul to the innocence and possibilities of youth. As we move toward and through the climactic passage of the movie, this tension between the openness of youth and the defended and inflexible nature of the adult after decades of contending with all the joys and sorrows, such as we hear week after week in our services, comes to a head. Tom is prepared to step off the path she and her father have been on and trust in all those people who have offered them nothing but kindness, comfort, and healing. Will cannot conceive of a community where the individual will not ultimately be brought to heal, not to health. I have now watched the film, I believe, 4 times. Every time I watch it, I cry. Why is that? Now, certainly the performances and the staging, frankly, are deeply involving and beautifully rendered. But if one is honest with oneself, Will stands revealed as more than just trivially abusive of his daughter. We understand that she has been on the cusp of coming into her own personhood, more than capable of exercising her own agency and judging whether other individuals, communities, and institutions are worthy of trust. And we understand that for all the love that Will and Tom, father and daughter, have for each other, she has been held back from coming into that agency and exercising full moral judgment of her own. She has always been, in essence, serving as the cliched version of Wordsworth's child parent, aiding Will in his program of isolation but never recovery, out of love and respect for a man who offers guidance to her and a light footprint on the land. But in the end, she stands revealed as the exemplar of Wordsworth's real meaning. She is an open, generous, and trusting soul, one her father desperately needs to model himself after, but cannot because of his wounds. She is able to say, in a heart-wrenching moment, what's wrong with you is not what's wrong with me, and to embrace her humanity. Tragically, this forces her to let her father go his way. His path leads far afield into the trackless woods, seemingly infinite in scope. Her path, though, sets off through terrain no less vast and perilous, that of entering into society fully and risking hopes and dreams on love and trust. I invite you all now to rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able, and join in our closing hymn. We celebrate the web of life. It's 175 in the gray hymnal.
We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude we sing, before we can see divinity in every living thing. A fragment of the perfect whole in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny barnacle as in the great blue whale. Of ancient dreams we are the sum, our bones leak soon and star, and bind our future worlds to come with worlds that were and are. Respect the water, land, and air which gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
We come to the end of our month exploring the worship theme of trust. And so, as we prepare to depart, for those moments when we are confronted by fear and self-doubt, but impelled forward by love or compassion, may we remember that it is trust we depend on to lift us aloft. And in that spirit, I offer these closing words as I extinguish our chalice by way of benediction from Khalil Gibran, Fear. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages, and in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. Go in peace and blessings. Amen, Ashe, and may you very blessed be. You guys in the